China has lent out more than $1 trillion.
Diplomatic boycott in protest.
No human rights.
More than 1 million
Ukraine
Uyghurs.
under attack. Is Europe
Using religion to justify unprecedented
As a journalist, we lead very, very hectic lives. The one thing we very rarely do is stop and reflect.
I would describe this as something of a spiritual and intellectual oasis, to be able to escape and have these conversations with some of the world's premier thinkers.
There was a growing cohort of journalists in the country who were reporting important issues that didn't understand religion, that had a blind spot when it came to religious realities. When Mitt Romney ran for governor, what is Mormonism? When ISIS flared up, what's the Islam part? So that was the beginning of Faith Angle. We create these getaways to go deep with top religion scholars to help explain and walk alongside journalists about the substance of things.
One of the things that I think is very important is to cast a kind of critical eye upon the use of religion or use of bastardized forms of religion for the purposes that are at odds with the very teaching of religious traditions. And awareness of this phenomenon, I think, is central to reporting about what's happening in the world.
We're trying to help contemporary journalists write stories that are more accurate and more nuanced when it comes to many things, including religion in society.
People have come, they've been skeptical, and they've kind of immediately been won over. They're pleasantly surprised by the quality of the discourse and by exposure to people that just aren't in their world.
Getting to talk to others who maybe come from a different world religion or background than you do, it's so refreshing, and it reminds you that the world is a very big place.
As a European, I was maybe a bit kind of suspicious of something religious, but I looked at the roster of journalists and also at the speakers, and I thought this looks really interesting.
We are really interested in trying to bridge divides. We have Muslim journalists, Christian journalists, Jewish journalists, secular, agnostic journalists, people from different backgrounds. That's a big priority, and the conversation is very much enriched when that happens.
I sit on the editorial board of the New York Times,
The Wall Street Journal,
The Atlantic.
I direct Yale Center for Faith and Culture.
Berlin Bureau Chief of the New York Times.
Washington Bureau Chief of Real Clear Politics.
It's also been intellectually stimulating. It's taught me how to think about things in new ways, things that I didn't know I had to think about. So it's been intellectually clarifying, refreshing, and professionally useful.
In this very calcified, polarized political context, it's very important to be confronted with other viewpoints. And it's a rare conference that does that.
It makes a big difference for journalists to get together and have time and space to go deep on just a couple of issues and take away some story ideas. And ultimately, to understand that religion is always in the room.
This is an ideas conference that's quite unusual.
To sort of see a more nuanced picture and to really think about how we represent or how we report some of these issues.
There's no substitute for that kind of human interaction.
It's really brought me together with people I never would have met otherwise, who have very different political views, religious backgrounds, different expertise. It's thought-provoking, challenging, sometimes maddening, and just awesome.
You cannot put a value on these conversations. You just can't. I'm going to be thinking about them for the rest of my life.